I'm Stephanie Weaver, fine art artist, and welcome to my studio where I come to you every week to give you an oil painting project. Now, what's an oil painting project? So the purpose is to really show and focus in on a particular technique, color, or subject matter, and dive into that with the express purpose of learning it, painting it, and repeating. Learn, paint, repeat. That's what I preach all the time. This is not a master class. In my opinion, there is no such thing as a master class. Mastery is achieved over a long period of time with purposeful, practical applications like what we do in my Positive Painter community. So, if you like all the sound of this, then let's get started and we're going to cue the intro. Alright, so welcome back to another week of oil painting. What we're going to work on this week is another round of painting on this particular subject. So we are working on a glass that has a lemon and some mint and water in it. It's actually like a little detox drink. So I know the previous weeks we had shown some alcoholic type drinks, and I don't drink. So, and you can read about that on my blog. Anyway, so I wanted to do something that was crisp, clean, and healthy. You know, our bodies were not meant to take alcohol. That's why it's called alcohol poisoning. But so this is a nice detox drink. So it's clean, it's crisp, it's colorful, and wow, those are three great C's, aren't they? So clean, crisp, and colorful. Love that. Okay, so we are going to continue to paint this. And so I actually brought out, I'm going to take you down to my palette now, okay? So in my palette, I have the same colors that I used last week. So what I did is I've got this little Masterson's palette here. And I've talked about this before, but I'm going to show you again. So I'll turn it the right way. Here we go. So this Masterson's palette, what it is, it's kind of like a little Tupperware type thing, but it was made for oil paints. And so it's got these little handy little knobs right here. So in theory, the oil paint doesn't get smushed, which works pretty well. Sometimes I get globs of it on there. So you got to be a little bit careful about how you pick it up. But the nice thing is, like, I stack these in my fridge. And I actually have two of them in my refrigerator, and then I have another glass palette in my freezer. But this is the Masterson's palette, and I'm using palette paper inside of it, so I can just like rip off a sheet. And so for this particular project, I did put it into the fridge, so I still have my paints all workable. I'm going to show you a little tip about that. So most of these paints are still workable. And how do I know that? I take my little palette knife and I'll like touch the top, and sometimes they form like a little skin. So that one was good. It does not need me to take it off. And the cobalt blue is good. Sap green is good. Alizarin crimson I know is going to be good, because alizarin crimson is one of the paints that takes like a really long time to dry. Now these next two are the ones that form the skin, and this is the burnt umber. So you can see I can get this little wad of skin that kind of comes off of it, like that. So if I had waited another week, I would have had to just kind of get rid of that whole thing. And depending if I'm actually going to use it, I would just get rid of the whole thing, because sometimes those little globs of paint get into your paintbrush and then onto your canvas, and don't really want that. So burnt umber typically skins up, and I don't think that's a technical term, by the way, skins up, but it's what I know. Okay, and then also burnt sienna will do it. So you can see I can just pull the skin off. And so what's underneath is still dry. But again, if I were going to use a lot of that, I'd probably just replace the whole thing. But I know in this painting, I'm not really going to use those a lot. And, you know, the orange is good. So I just kind of take my paintbrush or my palette knife I'm just testing it, clean it off every time. I know the yellows are good. They're always good. And then cobalt teal, good. Cerulean blue, good. Yellow, cadmium yellow light. And then we've got, and this is why last week, you remember me writing the names down? This is why it's so handy. Because this week, if I were to come back to this and I'd be like, okay, which one is phthalo and which one's emerald phthalo green? Because they're so close, aren't they? And so now I've got them written down. So yay me. It's good to be a little bit organized. So later on you go, oh, I was organized. Yay. All right, cool. Okay. The Viridian green, this is one that also skins up. So I'm going to pull the skin off. There we go, wipe it off. And then our naphthol red should be good. So now these colors down here should be good because I didn't add any medium to them. And as long as I didn't add any medium to them, they're not going to dry all that fast because the medium that they already have naturally in them is linseed oil, and I didn't put any fast drying medium in them. And the white will be good for a while. So the two slowest drying paints that you have on here are probably your titanium white and your alizarin crimson. And also ultramarine blue seems to take a long time too. But the two fastest that you'll likely have to replace if you're not actively using them throughout the week are going to be the burnt umber and burnt sienna every time. So we've got our ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, sap green, alizarin crimson, burnt umber, burnt sienna, cadmium orange medium, yellow ochre, cadmium yellow medium. And then we also added cobalt teal because we're using that in the background. And we put on here also cerulean blue, cadmium yellow light, and those make a beautiful green. That's right here. It's one of these two. I didn't write it down because they're so close to each other. And then the emerald green plus the cadmium yellow made one of these as well. So you kind of get to choose which ones work for you. Phthalo green plus cadmium yellow equals one of these colors as well. That's why you can kind of pick between your emerald green, phthalo green, and viridian green. It's really kind of up to you. In the video from last week, I've included a nice chart of all the different greens that I can make. And I only went up to like a certain formula number. I didn't do all the different variations that you can do. But I encourage you guys to do that because that's part of the color practice and really getting to know your colors and how to create all these gorgeous greens without thinking you have to buy them from the store, because you can create probably up 200, 300 different shades of green just from this palette by itself. So it's very extensible. I'm also going to put on here some Neoma Gilp. Neoma Gilp is a medium that helps us glaze on colors. And so what do I mean by glazing? Glazing allows us to thinly paint and we can actually see the layer below that paint. So it's almost adding like a tint or additional color to what we already have so we don't lose our brush strokes. And that's extremely handy with glass, especially with what we're working on here. I mean, we're basically working on water. And when we're working on water, we really want to be able to see through it. To create that illusion, we have to use a nice medium like Neoma Gilp to create that illusion without having to paint over and over and over. Okay. So I'm going to put a nice glob of it right there. All right, and I've got here, this is my Gamsol. Gamsol is what we use to thin our paint and then also clean our brushes. All right. Okay, so one of the things I'm also kind of thinking right now is I want to take my time with this. We're getting into the final details, and the details, let's just say, are the funnest part. And we have to do that towards the end because details will get overwritten if you focus on those in the beginning. And right now my mindset is very much like, I want to get so detailed, I just want to be able to see the condensation on the glass. So I want to get to that level. And what that means to me is I might not be able to achieve that today. but I know I'm going to get there. And I think that's an important mindset that we all kind of have to get into play, is this is an oil painting project. Unlike most projects, you know, I used to be a project manager for software implementation, they have a definitive end. And that definitive end is usually a date, right? So with painting, it's different. With painting, you have to think of a project as the definitive end when it achieves your goal, what you had in mind, your vision. And so this, I have a particular vision for, and I want to be able to see that condensation on the glass. So I'm going to keep plugging at this until I achieve that goal. And what that means for you is I want you to continue on a project, continue on a painting until you achieve the vision that's in your head. And I don't want you to get frustrated with, you know, the idea that it's just not doing it. I just keep trying, I keep pushing and all that. And it's not achieving the vision. Well, maybe right now is not the time for you to achieve that vision. You might need more practice to get to the point where you can achieve that vision. And that's totally fine. It's totally acceptable. It's like learning an instrument. You might want to be able to play the piano and play, you know, some Mozart piece. And you can envision yourself playing it. But that's going to take years of practice, right? But eventually you'll be able to do it. Same thing applies with oil painting. It is a learned skill that takes time to develop. That's why it's learn, paint, repeat, practical application. You master it over time. It's not a mastery class that you can take in 2 hours and go out and paint the Mona Lisa. It doesn't work like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my time with this because I have a vision for it and I know we can make that happen. So I'm going to start painting. All right. I've already got my color mixes already done. Go ahead and refer to last week's video to remake those color mixes. It's actually a separate video that says mixing colors or paint mixing. Go ahead and go back to that, mix your colors again. Okay? And then meet me back here and let's get started painting.